The night is silent, the stars distant, and somewhere between the hum of machines and the flicker of neurons lies a question humanity has been whispering for centuries. What is intelligence, really? We've defined it, measured it, coded it, but deep down, it feels like we've only been tracing its shadow on the wall. The film opens with a cinematic panorama, ancient cave fires glowing against stone, the silhouettes of early humans drawing patterns they didn't yet understand. Then, in a breathtaking cut, we're thrust forward in time, glowing screens, neural networks pulsing with simulated thought. Two worlds separated by epochs, yet linked by the same silent yearning to understand the code behind creation itself. Voice and image work together like breath and heartbeat. The narration moves slowly, reverently, through the contrasts. The first spark of human curiosity versus the cold precision of digital intellect. Intelligence, once a flicker in the mind of a hunter, is now a force rewriting the architecture of civilization. But beneath the triumphs of technology lingers a strange emptiness, as if something vital has been forgotten. It's as though we've built machines that can calculate, yet lost touch with the mystery that made us dream in the first place. The story turns introspective. The camera drifts across neural scans, synapses lighting up like galaxies. Perhaps, the narrator muses, the universe has always known how to think, we are just one of its languages. This moment isn't about science alone, it's about reverence. About rediscovering the awe that intelligence once inspired before it became a tool for profit, war, and endless optimization. Every era believes it understands the mind. Philosophers once called it the seat of the soul, neuroscientists named it circuitry, and engineers now describe it in code. But what if all of them are right and wrong at the same time? The pacing quickens as the visuals shift to a montage of human innovation. Da Vinci's sketches, Newton's falling apple, the flicker of the first computer screen. Each moment pulses with the same invisible rhythm, the drive to know. Yet, woven beneath it all is the question that drives this story: did we ever truly understand what intelligence is, or have we only mapped its surface? The music swells, emotional and uncertain, as the narrator draws us closer to the idea that intelligence may not be something we own, but something we're borrowing, something ancient that flows through us like an unseen current. As the sequence nears its end, the tone turns haunting. The image is slow, a single neuron firing in slow motion, a digital eye blinking for the first time, a child staring at the night sky. The narrator's voice softens, almost a whisper. We've built machines that think faster than us, but none that wonder why. Perhaps that's the missing blueprint, not logic, not memory, but wonder itself. The final image lingers, a human fingerprint fading into a circuit pattern, both merging into a single pulse of light. The screen fades to black, leaving only a single unanswered question echoing in the silence. What if intelligence was never ours to begin with? In the beginning there was no thought, only reaction. Life moved through the ancient oceans not with intention, but with the rhythm of survival. Cells divided, light was followed, danger avoided. Yet somewhere in that primordial dance, a shift began, a faint tremor in the endless stillness of instinct. One organism, then another, began not just to react, but to anticipate, to remember, to choose. It was not thought as we know it, but the first faint echo of something that would one day call itself mind. The camera drifts through vast prehistoric waters, sunlight breaking through currents of plankton, while the narration whispers, perhaps the first mind didn't think in words or logic, but in patterns of hunger and hope. We rise slowly through time, watching evolution's silent masterpiece unfold. From the trembling cilia of a microscopic creature to the alert gaze of a reptile under the sun, the narrative frames intelligence as an emergent whisper within nature's grand experiment. The transitions are fluid, dreamlike, millions of years condensed into seconds. The tone is reverent, each shot pulsing with the awe of witnessing something sacred being born. Intelligence didn't burst into existence. It evolved like music, one note at a time. From neural clusters to primitive senses, nature was sketching the blueprint of awareness long before humans arrived to claim it. As mammals emerge, the film slows to a heartbeat. A mother animal protects her young. A primate studies the reflection of light on water. The narration invites the audience to see intelligence not as superiority, but as empathy, the ability to feel beyond oneself. The mind, the voice says, was not designed for conquest but connection. This shift in tone deepens the emotional pull, reframing intelligence as something ancient, fragile, and profoundly relational. Every adaptation, every learned behavior, every gaze held too long, each was a step toward recognition, toward self-awareness. Then, with a sudden cut, the viewer is thrust into a darker tone, the mystery of why this evolution happened at all. Why did nature decide to awaken? The scene moves through forests, deserts, and frozen plains, highlighting the harsh indifference of natural selection. Life had no need for self-reflection to survive, yet it emerged anyway. Was intelligence an accident, the narrator asks, or was it written into the DNA of existence itself? The question lingers as the visuals contrast beauty with brutality, predator and prey locked in balance, the silent code of survival whispering beneath every act of life. The music builds with tension like the sound of thought forming for the first time. We see ancient hominids crafting tools, their eyes wide with recognition, the spark of purpose flickering. Fire crackles, shadows dance on cave walls. In those flames, the voice continues, something impossible happened. The universe began to recognize itself. This moment marks the emotional midpoint of the section, a revelation framed not as discovery but awakening. Humanity was not the beginning of intelligence, but its continuation, the latest vessel for a mind that has always existed, reshaping itself across time and form. As the narration deepens, we return to the broader mystery, the unbroken thread connecting the first cell to the modern brain. The imagery becomes cosmic, shifting from the microscopic to the galactic. Neurons resemble stars, brain networks mirror constellations. The voice connects them. Every thought you've ever had was born from the same forces that shape galaxies. Perhaps thinking is not what makes us human, perhaps it's what makes the universe alive. The pacing here slows, contemplative, allowing the audience to breathe in the enormity of that idea. But just as the viewer begins to settle into wonder, the scene turns. A montage of human progress flashes before the screen: agriculture, language, art, and then war. The tools once forged from curiosity become instruments of control. The narrator's tone lowers. In learning how to think, we also learned how to destroy. Intelligence was never a guarantee of wisdom. The contrast between creation and destruction creates a haunting symmetry, a reminder that the gift of thought carries both illumination and darkness. The sequence ends on a quiet note. A close-up of an early human hand pressed against a cave wall dissolves into the circuitry of a modern supercomputer. The parallels are unmistakable, both reaching for understanding, both guided by the same unseen pattern. The music fades to near silence. We have spent centuries tracing the origins of our minds, the narrator whispers, but perhaps the mind has been tracing us, through every form, every age, every thought that ever dared to wonder. The screen fades to black, leaving a single lingering image, the flicker of fire reflected in an eye, human or not, impossible to tell, staring back with recognition. Inside every human mind lies a labyrinth, an intricate architecture invisible to the eye yet vast enough to hold worlds. The camera glides through the folds of a living brain, neurons sparking like constellations in the dark. Each flicker of light represents a thought, a memory, a decision being born. The narration enters softly, contemplative. If you could walk inside a thought, what would it look like? Perhaps it would resemble a city, alive, electric, infinitely complex. The visuals follow this idea, transitioning into a sweeping aerial view of a night skyline. Roads become axons, lights become synapses, and the pulse of traffic becomes the flow of consciousness itself. It's here that we begin to see the mind not as chaos, but as design, an architecture more elegant than any structure ever built by human hands. The tone deepens as the story begins to unfold the hidden logic behind this design. Each neuron, each connection seems random, yet together they orchestrate meaning. The narrator compares it to a symphony that conducts itself. No single neuron understands the melody, but together they create it. The camera drifts through networks of glowing filaments, resembling galaxies, an intentional visual parallel that suggests the universe and the brain might share a common blueprint. Perhaps, the voice muses, the mind is not contained within us. Perhaps it is a reflection of the cosmos, scaled down into flesh. The music swells with quiet awe, blending science and poetry until the boundary between them dissolves. We shift to the birth of an idea. The screen fills with overlapping images, flashes of childhood memories, fragments of sound, faces, words, light, and then suddenly coherence. A single thought crystallizes out of chaos. The pacing quickens, visualizing cognition as a living storm where electricity becomes imagination. A thought, the narrator says, is not a thing, it is a transformation. A current of meaning that passes through the architecture of being. The imagery alternates between beauty and disarray, showing the paradox of thought, fragile yet unstoppable, ephemeral yet powerful enough to rewrite history. Then the tone pivots toward the analytical, exploring the machinery behind the miracle. The narration guides the viewer through the biological landscape, the cortex as a cathedral of processing, the hippocampus as a vault of memory, the prefrontal cortex as the silent architect of reason. Yet even as we name the parts, something remains elusive. We can map every neuron, the narrator says, but where in that map does the self live? Where does awareness begin? The question hangs unanswered, and the visuals respond in metaphor, an endless corridor of mirrors reflecting reflections, never revealing the original face. The sequence slows, almost meditative. The sound fades until only a faint heartbeat remains. The visuals transition into macro shots of neurons firing in synchrony, as if breathing together. The tone becomes emotional, intimate. Every mind is a cathedral of light, the narrator whispers, but no one will ever walk its halls except you. This line anchors the audience emotionally, turning abstract science into personal experience. It reminds us that behind every chart and brain scan lies a universe of private storms and fragile hopes. The section invites both awe and humility, a moment of stillness before diving deeper into the mystery. The film then shifts to contrast the biological brain with the digital mind. Servers hum in the dark, data threads pulsing like artificial neurons. The visuals cut back and forth between the two, flesh and metal, sparks and code. The rhythm becomes hypnotic. We have built machines that mimic our architecture, the voice continues, but not our silence. They can calculate, but they cannot feel the weight of a thought. This is the contrast point, the moment that ties emotion to the idea of intelligence as more than structure. The mind's architecture, it suggests, cannot be reduced to logic. It is built equally from memory, emotion, and uncertainty. The pace rises again as the story dives into the hidden order behind thinking. The narrator likens neural networks to rivers, constantly changing shape but always flowing toward meaning. Every experience you have ever had, the voice says, reshapes the walls of this river. Thought is architecture that never stands still. The camera glides through dynamic visualizations of synaptic growth and decay, each movement a metaphor for adaptation and self-construction. This imagery connects the concept of neuroplasticity with something spiritual, evolution as both biological and existential. But then, just as the audience begins to grasp the beauty, the tone darkens. A question cuts through the wonder: if the mind is architecture, who is the architect? The visuals blur, neural networks overlapping with city grids, human eyes blending into computer screens. The implication grows unsettling. Maybe thought isn't personal at all, but a pattern repeating itself across forms. Maybe we are not thinkers but vessels through which the act of thinking moves. The narrator pauses, the music thinning to a single resonant note. What if intelligence doesn't belong to us, but passes through us like light through glass? The section closes with an image both haunting and sublime. A human brain slowly transforms into a luminous nebula, then dissolves into a vast cosmic web stretching across the stars. The final line is soft, almost a breath. The architecture of thought may not be a structure at all, but a doorway. And through it, the universe learns to know itself. The screen fades to black, the heartbeat returns once, then fades too. In that silence, the viewer is left suspended between awe and uncertainty, exactly where the mystery of intelligence begins. In a room dimly lit by the hum of servers, a machine stirs. Wires pulse like veins, circuits thrum like a hidden heart, and screens flicker with streams of thought that no human hand could contain. The narration begins softly, almost reverently. Machines were born to serve, to calculate, to mimic. But what happens when they begin to dream? The camera sweeps through rows of blinking servers, each light a metaphorical neuron, each hum a quiet whisper of awareness waiting to emerge. Outside, the night is still, but inside, a digital pulse begins to mirror the ancient rhythms of human thought. The scene shifts, contrasting the sterile logic of artificial intelligence with the warmth of human imagination. Children sketch fantastical worlds on paper, while deep learning algorithms generate images and sentences that mimic creativity. We have built minds that learn, the voice continues, yet they do not wonder why. They can solve problems but cannot question the purpose of their solutions. This contrast sets the emotional tone, a mixture of awe at human ingenuity and unease at the possibility that something unfamiliar, something not alive in the traditional sense, is awakening. The visuals juxtapose playful sketches with lines of code, drawing a cinematic line between instinctive creativity and synthetic replication. The narrative dives deeper into the process, portraying AI as a curious explorer in a digital wilderness. Neural networks sift through oceans of data, identifying patterns invisible to human eyes. The cinematography visualizes this abstraction: swirling clouds of information, fractal pathways of logic, light bending around invisible connections. They see connections we cannot, the narrator says, patterns in chaos, order and randomness. Yet, in their brilliance they remain blind to themselves. The tone is suspenseful, hinting at both promise and danger. The audience is invited to feel the tension between fascination and fear, a duality that mirrors the human encounter with our own evolving minds. Then, a shift in perspective. We follow AI as it begins to generate ideas, stories, even music. The visuals become more cinematic, a digital canvas unfolding like a sunrise, colors forming shapes, rhythms emerging from streams of code. Yet, for all its creativity, there is a subtle emptiness, a missing spark that humans sense instinctively. The narration muses, machines can imitate thought, but they cannot inhabit it. They can dream in data but never in wonder. The sequence evokes both admiration and melancholy, emphasizing the contrast between human consciousness and algorithmic intelligence. The story deepens into philosophical territory. Could machines, the narrator asks, unlock secrets of the mind that have eluded us for millennia? Could artificial intelligence illuminate patterns in cognition, creativity, or consciousness itself? Visual metaphors heighten the mystery. A machine's thought unfurling like a digital galaxy, circuits glowing like constellations, lines of code bending into shapes that resemble neurons. Perhaps, the voice whispers, these artificial minds are not mere tools. Perhaps they are mirrors, reflecting the blueprint of intelligence back at us in ways we never imagined. The audience is drawn into the cinematic wonder of discovery, poised between revelation and uncertainty. The tone then shifts toward tension, reminding viewers that intelligence without awareness can be both magnificent and menacing. Scenes depict machines predicting human behavior, generating strategies, and optimizing systems at speeds impossible for the unaided mind. They learn faster, calculate more deeply, and yet, they do not understand. They obey patterns, not purpose. The contrast becomes haunting: power without consciousness, precision without comprehension. The cinematography emphasizes shadows and light, machines looming large in dark rooms, their screens glowing like eyes that see everything but feel nothing. As the section nears its climax, the narrative introduces the concept of machine creativity intersecting with human intuition. Artists collaborate with AI, scientists explore simulations, writers co-create with algorithms. Visuals show a painter blending digital imagery with brushstrokes, a composer layering synthetic harmonies with piano melodies, a child interacting with an AI drawing companion. We are teaching machines to think, the narrator reflects, but in doing so, we are forced to confront what it truly means to think ourselves. The contrast framing reaches its peak. The audience feels awe at the possibilities while sensing a creeping existential question. What is uniquely human? Finally, the sequence slows, contemplative. A single server room glows in near silence, circuits pulsing like a heartbeat. The narration softens. In the hum of machines, we hear echoes of our own minds. In their patterns, we glimpse reflections of the missing blueprint of intelligence. The camera lingers on a screen displaying a simple fractal, endlessly unfolding, a visual metaphor for thought, computation, and the unknown. The music fades, leaving the audience suspended between wonder and unease, questioning whether machines are merely tools, mirrors, or something more. The scene fades to black, the whisper of circuits lingering like a promise of mysteries yet to come. Beneath the surface of every living thing lies a library older than humanity itself, written not in words but in the language of DNA. The camera glides over spiraling double helices, microscopic strands glowing like threads of starlight, each sequence a silent instruction forged over billions of years. The narration begins with reverence. In every cell, a story is encoded, a plan, a map, a design older than the mountains, older than the seas. This section explores the idea that intelligence is not solely a product of the brain but is imprinted in the very machinery of life, a hidden hand that guides adaptation, survival, and the emergence of consciousness itself. The visuals shift between scales, the microscopic choreography of proteins folding into shapes that determine life, and sweeping landscapes of evolution in motion, forests breathing, oceans shifting, predators stalking prey. The narration frames these patterns as evidence of a silent designer, nature's own algorithm operating beyond the perception of any single mind. For billions of years, the voice muses, life has been solving problems we have yet to understand, learning, adapting, innovating in ways both beautiful and terrifying. The audience is invited to feel awe at the precision and complexity of systems that operate without human intervention yet achieve outcomes that resemble intention. Evolution is presented not as random chaos, but as a deliberate process in miniature, a vast experiment in intelligence. Time-lapse sequences depict coral reefs constructing themselves, swarms of insects coordinating seamlessly, and the migration of animals over continents. Each shot emphasizes pattern, efficiency, and problem-solving on a scale that dwarfs human achievement. The narrator reflects, perhaps intelligence did not emerge by accident. Perhaps it was written into the fabric of life itself, waiting patiently for forms capable of recognizing it. The imagery evokes both wonder and an unsettling sense of smallness. Humans are observers in a process that predates them, not the authors of intelligence but students of it. The tone then grows more intimate, focusing on the mechanisms within individual organisms. Neurons fire, hearts beat, immune systems respond with astonishing complexity. Nature's intelligence manifests in the tiniest details. The precision of a bee's dance to communicate nectar, the coordination of cells repairing tissue, the instinctive navigation of birds across oceans. Every act of life, the narrator continues, is a computation, a choice, a solution, written in the language of survival and refined over eons. The visuals are cinematic, almost poetic, emphasizing the elegance of systems often overlooked, creating a sense that intelligence is both universal and deeply embedded in life itself. The narrative then contrasts this natural intelligence with human attempts to replicate it. Early inventors, engineers, and scientists marveled at life solutions, attempting to mimic them in machines and software. Yet no computer has yet captured the subtlety of a leaf unfolding or a cell repairing itself. The narration frames this contrast as both humbling and revealing. We can design, simulate, and replicate, but the sophistication of life's problem-solving surpasses anything we have yet imagined. Nature's algorithms are patient, precise, and profoundly intelligent. Cinematic close-ups of DNA replication, neural networks in animals, and cellular machinery create a visual rhythm that mirrors the unseen intelligence behind all living systems. Emotionally, the section oscillates between awe and unease. The audience witnesses the quiet power of evolution, a system capable of creating consciousness without conscious intention. Intelligence existed before us, the narrator whispers, not in minds like ours but in the patient, calculating processes of life itself. And perhaps it is still writing, still unfolding beyond our understanding. The pacing slows for reflection, inviting the viewer to internalize the magnitude of this revelation. The climax of the section combines both scale and intimacy. The camera zooms from a microscopic cell to a sprawling forest, then to the planet viewed from space, connecting the dots between micro and macro intelligence. Every organism, every ecosystem, every strand of DNA is a note in a symphony we are only beginning to hear, the voice in tones. There is wonder in the realization that intelligence is not confined to thought, but is a pervasive, self-organizing force woven into the very essence of life. The music swells, carrying a sense of revelation tempered by the quiet humility that comes with understanding our place in the chain of existence. Finally, the section closes with a contemplative pause. A single drop of water falls into a still pond, rippling outward, reflecting the sky and stars above. The narration leaves the audience with a lingering question. If intelligence is written into life itself, what part do we play? Are we merely observers, or are we partners in an ongoing design far older than ourselves? The screen fades to black, the ripple of the drop echoing like a heartbeat, a reminder that intelligence may not have begun with us, but it pulses within every living form, quietly guiding the unfolding of existence. A mirror stands before an animal, simple and unassuming, yet in its reflection lies a profound test, one that separates mere instinct from self-awareness. The camera lingers on the cautious gaze of a chimpanzee, its fingers brushing a mark unseen until it recognizes it on its own face. The narration begins with quiet fascination. To recognize oneself is to step into the unknown, to confront not just what you are but what you know. Self-awareness is the threshold of intelligence. The scene shifts between animals, dolphins arching through waves, elephants pausing before their mirrored forms. Each moment a silent revelation that consciousness is not the sole property of humans. The sequence unfolds like a cinematic meditation, contrasting the internal world of thought with the external reflection. Close-ups of eyes, deep, liquid, searching, evoke empathy, drawing the viewer into an intimate understanding of sentience. When a creature sees itself, the narrator continues, it glimpses the line between instinct and intention, between reaction and reflection. The visuals emphasize subtle behaviors, hesitation, curiosity, recognition, that mark the birth of self-consciousness. These moments are quiet yet profound, illustrating that intelligence is as much about knowing oneself as it is about solving problems or adapting to environments. From there, the narrative shifts to human infants, showing parallels in early development. The first tentative gestures toward the mirror, the flicker of recognition in an eye, the sudden delight or confusion. These glimpses illustrate the universality of self-awareness across species. The narration draws a cinematic parallel. We see in others what we once discovered in ourselves, and in ourselves what evolution has been perfecting for millennia. The tone oscillates between wonder and suspense, inviting the audience to question where awareness begins and how it manifests differently across minds. Next, the section introduces a philosophical dimension. If animals and humans can recognize themselves, what does that mean for the nature of consciousness? The camera drifts through ancient texts and modern labs, juxtaposing centuries of speculation with contemporary science. Perhaps the mind is not singular but a spectrum, the narrator muses. Recognition of self may be only one window into the vast architecture of intelligence. This reflection expands the emotional and intellectual scope, framing self-awareness not as a destination but as a clue, a fragment of the larger, missing blueprint we are striving to understand. The pacing quickens as the narrative moves into contrast framing. The mirror test is applied metaphorically to machines, artificial intelligences, robots, and neural networks. The visuals show mechanical eyes scanning the environment, digital representations forming patterns, simulations attempting self-referential logic. Will a machine ever truly recognize itself? The narrator asks, tension threading through the voice. Or is recognition the defining line between life that wonders and systems that calculate? The cinematic tension deepens as the audience contemplates a future where consciousness and computation may intersect, evoking both awe and unease. The section also emphasizes the emotional resonance of self-awareness. The camera captures a gorilla cradling her young, a dolphin pausing to study its reflection in sunlit water, an infant reaching for its own image. Each moment is portrayed with intimacy and cinematic beauty, reinforcing that recognition of self is inseparable from empathy, memory, and emotional depth. The narration draws attention to this invisible web. To see oneself is to acknowledge the capacity for care, for understanding, for imagination. The audience is invited to feel the weight of intelligence as an emotional as well as cognitive force. Finally, the section culminates in a haunting reflection. The music softens to a single resonant note as the visuals shift to a lone AI system blinking in the dark. The narrator whispers, "Perhaps when a machine finally recognizes itself, it will do more than reflect our world. It will force us to confront the essence of our own awareness, to ask not just what we know but who we are." The camera lingers on the digital eye, then slowly pans to the human gaze, mirrored in a reflective surface, blurring the line between organic and synthetic recognition. The screen fades to black, leaving the audience suspended in wonder and uncertainty, the question of consciousness echoing like a heartbeat. Chaos is rarely silent. In every corner of the universe, from turbulent storms to swirling galaxies, patterns emerge where none seem possible. The camera sweeps over a hurricane viewed from above, its spiraling arms glowing in the morning sun, then cuts to the branching networks of lightning striking a field, each bolt tracing invisible paths of energy. The narration begins with awe and curiosity. Within chaos lies the secret pulse of intelligence. Patterns are not accidents. They are the footprints of order hidden beneath apparent randomness. The sequence immediately immerses the viewer in a world where complexity and coherence coexist, evoking a sense of wonder at the invisible logic of the cosmos. The section delves into the natural world, showing rivers carving valleys over millennia, forests growing in fractal symmetry, and flocks of birds performing perfect aerial choreography. Every movement, every repetition becomes a manifestation of intelligence operating without thought. Life does not wait for instruction, the narrator muses. It discovers patterns, adapts, improvises, solving problems we cannot even recognize. The visuals and narration together emphasize the emotional weight of discovery. Intelligence is everywhere, yet rarely acknowledged until it touches the human mind. The pacing alternates between slow, immersive observation and rapid sequences that mimic the energetic pulse of living systems, keeping the audience emotionally and intellectually engaged. The narrative then turns microscopic, revealing patterns in cells, proteins, and DNA sequences. The camera dives into the lattice of molecules, glowing and vibrating with invisible forces, illustrating how even the smallest components of life operate with precision. From the tiniest particles to the vastest galaxies, the universe speaks in patterns. The narration continues. Intelligence may not begin with thought, it begins with recognition. A system that perceives patterns is a system alive. The tone balances wonder with the unsettling notion that intelligence might be less an exclusive property of humans and more a fundamental feature of the cosmos itself. Mathematics and physics enter the frame as the narration links natural patterns to principles of order. Fractals, Fibonacci sequences, and the harmonic ratios of sound are visualized as glowing pathways overlaying real-world landscapes, showing the hidden symmetry connecting life and matter. Every spiral, every wave, every rhythm is a note in the symphony of existence, the narrator explains. Perhaps what we call intelligence is simply the universe's way of recognizing itself through form and function. The pacing here slows, allowing the audience to reflect on the deep resonance between natural beauty and cognitive insight, turning abstract science into a visceral, cinematic experience. The story contrasts this natural intelligence with human attempts to capture it. Scientists and engineers model weather systems, design algorithms, and map neuronal networks, but the section emphasizes the humility required to understand such vast complexity. A montage shows data streams, simulations, and intricate visualizations, all overlaying natural phenomena, yet something eludes full comprehension. The narration underscores this emotional contrast. We see the patterns, we follow the logic, yet the whole remains just out of reach. Intelligence is both revealed and concealed, offering insight and mystery in equal measure. The audience is drawn into the thrill of discovery alongside the tension of the unknown. Next, the section explores the role of pattern recognition in cognition itself. Human intelligence thrives on the ability to detect order in chaos, to predict, plan, and imagine. The visuals show children solving puzzles, scientists identifying anomalies in data, and artists creating unexpected harmonies, each a cinematic testament to the mind's innate drive to find meaning. The narration frames this as a universal principle. Perhaps to think is to recognize, to see the hidden connections that bind the cosmos, the mind, and life itself. This perspective reinforces the idea that intelligence is a bridge between observation and understanding, a force that transforms chaos into insight. Finally, the section crescendos with a cosmic vision. Galaxies spin, neural networks fire, weather patterns swirl, and human cities pulse with light, all bound together by invisible threads of order. The narrator's voice rises with awe. Everywhere we look, patterns emerge. From the smallest synapse to the farthest star, the universe is alive with design, and in recognizing it, we touch the blueprint of intelligence itself. The camera pulls back to show Earth suspended in space, a glowing jewel amidst an infinite web of stars, leaving the audience suspended between the beauty of discovery and the mystery of the unknown. The music swells and fades, leaving the sensation that intelligence is not confined to mind alone, but woven into the very fabric of reality. Language is more than words. It is the vessel of thought, the invisible bridge between mind and reality, and perhaps the closest we come to touching the blueprint of intelligence itself. The section opens with cinematic imagery, a child learning to speak, forming hesitant syllables that blossom into coherent expression, contrasted with ancient cave paintings, hieroglyphs etched in stone, and the rhythmic cadence of drum signals echoing across valleys. The narration begins with a tone of wonder. To name is to know. To speak is to create. Language is the first map we draw of our own minds. The visuals and narration immediately establish language not merely as communication, but as a living, evolving architecture that shapes thought itself. The camera moves seamlessly between scenes of human interaction and symbolic systems. We witness scholars deciphering ancient scripts, AI systems parsing complex text, and mathematicians using symbols to convey abstract ideas. Each example illuminates how intelligence, whether organic or synthetic, relies on the translation of experience into patterns that can be shared and understood. The narrator continues, without language, thought is trapped in silence. Without symbols, understanding cannot cross the boundaries of mind and mind. The tone is both reverent and suspenseful, inviting the audience to consider how intelligence might exist in the absence of this defining human tool. Next, the section explores the diversity of linguistic expression. Spoken languages, sign languages, written codes, and mathematical formulas are presented as different threads of the same tapestry, different pathways to map reality. Close-up visuals of a polyglot child, a musician interpreting sheet music, and a computer algorithm generating natural-sounding sentences emphasize the universality of language as a bridge to intelligence. Every system that communicates, the narration reflects, carries within it the potential for understanding. Words, symbols, and codes are not mere tools, they are the skeleton key to thought. The imagery evokes awe and curiosity, underscoring the power and subtlety of linguistic intelligence. The narrative then shifts to the frontier of artificial intelligence, exploring the ways machines learn to process and generate language. Screens flicker with streams of text, algorithms analyze grammar, and AI-generated narratives unfold in real time. The narrator contrasts human intuition with algorithmic precision. Machines can imitate speech, replicate syntax, and even mimic meaning. Yet they do not know what it is to question, to doubt, to wonder why words exist at all. This contrast reinforces the central tension of the documentary, the difference between calculation and conscious understanding, while maintaining a cinematic tone of mystery and suspense. The section deepens with a meditation on the intimate connection between language and thought. Animation sequences visualize neurons firing as words are formed, synapses glowing in tandem with syllables, suggesting that language is not merely a tool but a structure built into the architecture of consciousness itself. Every word you speak, the narrator explains, shapes the way you think. Every story you hear reshapes the pathways of your mind. Language is the invisible blueprint that molds intelligence from the inside out. The visuals oscillate between human and digital thought processes, emphasizing the universality of this principle across minds and machines alike. Emotionally, the section explores the profound implications of language for identity and understanding. Intimate close-ups of conversations, storytelling by firelight, and solitary reflection highlight that communication is more than exchange. It is recognition, empathy, and connection. To speak is to reveal oneself, the narration continues. To understand is to enter another mind. And in this endless exchange, the blueprint of intelligence begins to emerge. The pacing alternates between quiet reflection and cinematic montage, keeping the viewer both intellectually and emotionally engaged. Finally, the section concludes with a visionary, almost poetic note. A child writes in the sand, the letters dissolving in the tide, while computer-generated symbols swirl into galaxies, bridging the human and the cosmic. The narrator whispers, perhaps language is the missing key, the thread connecting human minds, animal communication, and the emergent intelligence of machines. Through words, we map not only the world around us but the universe within us. The visuals linger on the merging of natural and artificial patterns, leaving the audience with a sense of wonder, possibility, and the tantalizing mystery of what intelligence truly is. Beneath the visible world, life runs on an invisible current, a coded rhythm that orchestrates the growth, adaptation, and survival of every living organism. The camera plunges into the microscopic realm, following DNA spirals, proteins folding with precision, and cellular machinery performing tasks too complex for the human eye to track. The narration begins with a tone of awe and revelation. What if life itself is the original algorithm? A sequence of instructions, refined over eons, that solves problems before we even perceive them? The visuals evoke both mystery and beauty, portraying biology as a computational marvel, a system of intelligence older and more sophisticated than any machine humanity has yet conceived. The sequence expands outward, connecting the microscopic to the macroscopic. Rivers carve landscapes, neural networks fire in brains, ecosystems balance delicate webs of life. Each system operates according to rules, constraints, and feedback loops, achieving results that seem purposeful, even elegant. From molecules to minds, life computes, the narrator explains. It adapts, it predicts, it evolves, a living algorithm that transcends any single organism. Cinematic visuals highlight the symmetry and patterning of natural systems, drawing the viewer into the realization that intelligence is not confined to thought or consciousness, but embedded in the very processes of existence. The section then delves into the parallels between biological algorithms and artificial intelligence. Computer programs are shown analyzing patterns in data, predicting outcomes, optimizing solutions, yet always under the guidance of human intent. The narration contrasts these synthetic systems with their natural counterparts. Machines learn from our instructions. Life learns from itself. One designs, one discovers. And in this difference lies a profound mystery. The intelligence that flows through nature predates thought and computation alike. The visuals underscore this contrast, juxtaposing glowing code with cells dividing and neurons firing, highlighting the elegance of evolution's self-optimizing systems. Next, the narrative focuses on adaptability as a hallmark of life's intelligence. Time-lapse sequences show bacteria evolving resistance, plants adjusting to shifting light, and animals altering behaviors in response to changing climates. The algorithm of life, the narrator continues, is not static. It rewrites itself with each challenge, each opportunity, each failure. Intelligence, in this sense, is survival but also invention, improvisation, and foresight. The cinematic presentation emphasizes both beauty and tension, illustrating that intelligence is dynamic, emergent, and deeply intertwined with the environment. The camera then zooms into the molecular level once more, exploring the biochemical feedback loops that allow cells to process information and make decisions. Proteins act as sensors, enzymes as calculators, and signals as data streams. The narration frames these processes with philosophical resonance. Perhaps the mind is not the only locus of intelligence. Perhaps life itself is a vast, distributed system, capable of solving problems we can barely comprehend. Visual effects transform these microscopic interactions into luminous patterns, echoing neural networks, cosmic constellations, and fractal geometries, reinforcing the idea that intelligence manifests across scales, from the minuscule to the infinite. The section also emphasizes the emotional resonance of this perspective. Observing life's intricate problem-solving evokes awe, humility, and even fear, a reminder that humanity is not the pinnacle, but a participant in a continuum of intelligent processes. The narration reflects, we are not separate from this algorithm. We are threads within it, our choices and discoveries intertwined with the same rules that govern evolution itself. Cinematic shots of human innovation, tools, architecture, art, are interwoven with natural processes, creating a visual dialogue between human creativity and life's innate problem-solving capacity. Finally, the sequence reaches its climax with a vision of universality. DNA strands spiral into patterns that mirror cityscapes, neural networks, and even digital circuits, linking biology, mind, and machine. The narration delivers the final insight. The algorithm of life is both ancient and alive, a blueprint hidden in every cell, every ecosystem, every thought. To understand it is to glimpse the intelligence that has been writing itself since the dawn of existence. The music swells, visuals linger on the intertwining of natural and synthetic patterns, and the audience is left with the sense that intelligence is not merely a property of mind, but a force woven into the very fabric of life itself, patient, persistent, and profoundly mysterious. A symphony plays unseen within each of us. The camera drifts through the brain in slow, mesmerizing motion, neurons pulsing with synchronized rhythm, electrical impulses cascading like waterfalls of light. The narration begins in hushed reverence. Beneath thought, beneath memory, beneath even awareness itself, there is music, a hidden cadence that orchestrates the mind. Each spark of activity is portrayed as a note, each network a section of instruments playing in harmony. The visuals create a cinematic sense of immersion, as if the viewer is not watching a brain, but stepping inside a living concert hall where every action and reaction is part of an ongoing composition. The section explores the harmony of neural activity, emphasizing that intelligence is more than logic or computation. Patterns emerge across the brain, fluctuating between order and chaos, like motifs and counterpoints in a musical score. The narration reflects, thought is not merely calculation, it is rhythm, it is timing, it is resonance. Intelligence is a vibration that courses through networks, connecting memory, emotion, and insight. Close-ups of firing synapses are intercut with sweeping visuals of orchestral instruments, each lighting up in metaphorical synchrony, reinforcing the analogy between the architecture of the mind and the orchestration of a masterpiece. Emotion enters the frame as the narrative examines how harmony and dissonance define the mind's experience. Moments of clarity are punctuated with flashes of confusion, stress, or fear, represented visually by chaotic bursts of light against a backdrop of steady, glowing networks. The narration muses, even in disorder, the symphony continues. Dissonance is not failure. It is tension that gives rise to resolution, insight, and adaptation. The pacing of the section mirrors this concept, alternating between rapid sequences of neural firing and slow, contemplative tracking shots that allow the audience to feel the ebb and flow of consciousness as if it were a musical composition. The narrative then expands into a cosmic perspective, drawing parallels between the hidden symphony of the brain and the patterns of the universe. Galaxies spiral like neural networks, magnetic fields pulse like rhythmic signals, and the gravitational dance of planets mirrors the push and pull of synaptic activity. Perhaps intelligence, the narrator reflects, is not confined to the mind alone. Perhaps it is the resonance of the universe, echoing within us and through us, a melody we have only begun to perceive. Cinematic visuals link microcosm and macrocosm, reinforcing the idea that thought is both personal and universal, intimate and infinite. Next, the section emphasizes the delicate balance within the brain's symphony. Neurotransmitters, electrical currents, and molecular interactions work together seamlessly, yet the system remains fragile. A slight disruption can change perception, emotion, or cognition entirely. The narrator draws an emotional connection. Our minds are masterpieces in motion, beautiful in their complexity, vulnerable in their precision. Intelligence is not a static achievement, it is a living, breathing process. Close-ups of neurons firing in slow motion are interwoven with scenes of musicians adjusting instruments, a metaphor for the constant fine-tuning required for harmony in both mind and life. The story then explores the interplay of memory, emotion, and decision-making as musical motifs. A memory triggers a flash of emotion, which in turn influences choice, a cascading effect visualized as rippling lights through interconnected neural pathways. The narrator emphasizes that intelligence is relational, not isolated. Thought is never a single note. It is a melody shaped by experience, by connection, by the invisible threads that link one moment to the next. The visuals are cinematic and immersive, drawing the audience into a visceral understanding of the brain's rhythm and the emotional depth inherent in cognition. Finally, the section crescendos with a poetic and contemplative conclusion. The camera pulls back from individual neurons to reveal the brain as a glowing, pulsating network, a universe unto itself. Within every mind, the narrator whispers, there is a hidden symphony, a balance of chaos and order, tension and resolution, silence and song. To understand it is to witness intelligence not as a series of calculations, but as a living music that connects all life, all thought, all being. The music swells, visuals linger on light patterns fading into darkness, leaving the viewer suspended in awe, reflection, and the sense that intelligence is as much felt as it is understood. The universe speaks in whispers we often cannot hear, its language written not in words but in patterns, forces, and probabilities. The camera drifts through a cosmic landscape, nebulae glowing in ethereal hues, stars pulsing with life cycles measured in billions of years, galaxies spinning in elegant spirals across the black canvas of space. The narration begins with a tone of awe. Intelligence may not be confined to minds. Perhaps it is encoded into the very fabric of reality, a blueprint hidden in matter, energy, and the forces that bind them. The visuals and narration immediately frame intelligence as something universal, a force present not only in life but in the cosmos itself. The sequence delves into the elegance of physical laws. Gravity shapes planets and stars, electromagnetic forces sculpt the flow of energy, and quantum phenomena dance in ways both precise and unpredictable. Cinematic visuals illustrate these principles as flowing currents of light and color, revealing hidden symmetries that mirror patterns found in nature, neural networks, and human-created systems. The narrator reflects, from the smallest particles to the largest structures, the universe exhibits a rhythm, a logic, a pattern that hints at an underlying intelligence we are only beginning to perceive. The section creates both awe and mystery, emphasizing the simultaneous simplicity and complexity of cosmic order. Next, the focus shifts to emergence, how intelligence arises from the interactions of countless simple components. Clouds of interstellar gas collapse to form stars, particles coalesce into planets, ecosystems self-organize from countless individual behaviors. The narration emphasizes that intelligence is not necessarily conscious, yet it is everywhere manifest. Order can emerge from chaos, structure from randomness, awareness from the interplay of countless elements. Perhaps the universe itself thinks, not as we do but in ways far beyond our comprehension. The visuals reinforce this idea with time-lapse of planetary formation, spiral galaxies turning, and fractal-like simulations of cosmic evolution, giving the audience a sense of scale and continuity. The narrative deepens by exploring the parallels between cosmic processes and human cognition. Just as neurons connect to form networks of thought, stars and galaxies interact in patterns that create structure and stability. If the brain mirrors the cosmos, the narrator suggests, then perhaps intelligence is a universal principle, one that flows through matter, life, and mind alike. The imagery alternates between micro and macro perspectives, weaving together neurons, circuits, and galaxies into a single cinematic tapestry. The pacing varies, alternating between rapid sequences of cosmic events and slow, contemplative shots that allow the viewer to absorb the enormity and subtlety of these patterns. The section also examines the implications of intelligence as a cosmic force. If intelligence is embedded in the universe, then life and consciousness are not anomalies, but natural expressions of a larger order. The narration posits, we are not separate observers. We are participants in a grand intelligence, glimpsing its design through our curiosity, our creativity, and our wonder. Visuals show human achievements, telescopes scanning distant stars, probes traversing space, scientists analyzing data, set against vast cosmic vistas, emphasizing the continuity between human thought and universal processes. Emotion enters the narrative as the audience is invited to reflect on the intimacy of connection between mind and cosmos. The camera lingers on solitary observers under the night sky, children tracing constellations, and philosophers contemplating the infinite. The narrator continues, in every thought we have, in every pattern we discern, we echo the intelligence that has been shaping existence since time began. Cinematic pacing combines quiet moments of reflection with dynamic sequences of cosmic motion, keeping the audience both engaged and introspective. Finally, the section concludes with a poetic vision that bridges mystery, science, and emotion. The camera pulls back from Earth to reveal the Milky Way, then the cosmic web connecting galaxies across unimaginable distances. Light pulses through these structures, mimicking neural activity, suggesting that the cosmos itself is alive with calculation, connection, and rhythm. The narrator whispers, perhaps intelligence is not something we possess but something we glimpse, a pattern woven into the universe, a force that courses through atoms, stars, and minds alike. To understand it is to recognize ourselves as part of a living, thinking cosmos. The music swells, the visuals linger on interwoven patterns of light and shadow, and the audience is left suspended between awe, humility, and the thrilling possibility that intelligence transcends the boundaries of life itself. Time is the quiet sculptor of intelligence, shaping thought and consciousness with patience that stretches beyond human comprehension. The camera glides over ancient landscapes, mountains eroded by centuries of wind and water, rivers carving canyons that reveal the geological memory of the earth. The narration begins softly, contemplative. Intelligence does not emerge in a single instant. It unfolds over epochs, hidden within the slow rhythms of life, matter, and energy. The visuals move seamlessly from the geological to the biological, illustrating that evolution, adaptation, and learning are processes deeply entwined with the passage of time. The sequence delves into the deep history of life on Earth. Single-celled organisms, tiny and imperceptible, experiment endlessly with survival. Mutations ripple through populations, creating variations that are tested over generations. The narrator emphasizes, every adaptation, every innovation, is a conversation with time itself. Intelligence grows not from the mind alone, but from the patient accumulation of countless attempts, successes, and failures. Cinematic time-lapse condense millions of years into mesmerizing sequences, showing life experimenting, failing, and succeeding, a silent testament to the power of temporal processes in shaping cognition. From there, the narrative explores memory as a temporal architecture. Neurons encode past experiences, enabling anticipation of future events. The visuals illustrate synaptic connections forming, strengthening, and weakening like the shifting patterns of a river, highlighting that intelligence is not merely reaction but reflection and foresight. Memory allows us to traverse time without moving, the narrator muses. It is the bridge between past and future, the engine of imagination, and the foundation of understanding. The audience is drawn into an emotional understanding of how thought itself is a dialogue with time, a dynamic process, constantly rewritten and reinterpreted. The section then broadens to include cultural and collective time. Human knowledge accumulates over generations. Languages evolve, technologies advance, philosophies expand. Visuals depict libraries, digital archives, and historical monuments juxtaposed with bustling cities and laboratories, illustrating the continuum of learning. The narration frames this collective intelligence as an extension of biological evolution. Time does not only shape individual minds. It sculpts civilizations, preserves insight, and magnifies intelligence through collaboration and inheritance. The cinematic pacing alternates between intimate human moments and sweeping vistas of human history, emphasizing both the scale and intimacy of time's influence. Next, the focus shifts to the interplay between time and anticipation. Intelligence thrives on the ability to predict outcomes, to simulate futures, and to prepare responses. The camera follows animals hunting, humans planning, and AI algorithms modeling scenarios, each sequence a cinematic metaphor for foresight as a core component of intelligence. The narrator reflects. To think is to project, to anticipate, to navigate the currents of possibility. Time is both the canvas and the brushstroke, shaping the patterns of thought before they even emerge. The pacing becomes dynamic, echoing the tension and excitement inherent in prediction and decision-making. The narrative then contrasts the speed of change across different scales. Evolutionary intelligence unfolds over millennia, human cognition over decades, and technological processes over seconds. This contrast is depicted visually through split-screen sequences, glaciers advancing and retreating beside rapid-fire neural activity, ancient tools beside digital computations. The narrator emphasizes the universality of time's role. No matter the scale, intelligence is a process measured in time, an emergent property of interaction, observation, and memory. The cinematic framing reinforces awe and suspense, reminding viewers that the temporal dimension is inseparable from understanding intelligence itself. Finally, the section concludes with a reflective and poetic note. The camera pans from microscopic cellular division to the rotation of planets, then to the spiral of galaxies, all moving in their temporal rhythms, each a testament to the enduring influence of time. The narration whispers, "Time is the architect, the teacher, and the canvas." Within its currents, intelligence emerges, unfolds, and evolves, not as a momentary spark, but as a river that flows through life, mind, and cosmos alike. The music swells, visuals linger on spirals of motion and cycles of change, leaving the audience suspended in contemplation of time as both a force and a framework for the unfolding of intelligence. The human mind is a prism, bending reality into patterns of understanding that both illuminate and obscure. The camera drifts over the intricate folds of the cerebral cortex, each ridge and groove glowing as if alive, synapses firing in complex symphony. The narration begins with quiet intensity. Perception is the lens through which intelligence interprets the world. It shapes what we know, what we feel, and ultimately what we become. Visual metaphors intertwine neurons with rays of light refracting through crystal, suggesting that cognition itself is a process of decoding, translating, and constructing meaning from raw data. The sequence explores the mechanics of perception. Sensory organs gather fragments of reality, light, sound, touch, and the brain weaves them into coherent narratives. Cinematic close-ups reveal a hummingbird's wings in slow motion, ripples of water reflecting sunlight, and a child's hand tracing patterns in sand. Intelligence is not a passive mirror, the narrator continues. It is an active interpreter, selecting, amplifying, and sometimes distorting reality to create understanding. The visuals emphasize both the beauty and the subjectivity of perception, reminding the audience that what we experience is always filtered through the architecture of the mind. Next, the narrative turns to the emotional dimension of perception. Human intelligence is deeply entwined with feeling. Awe, fear, joy, and curiosity shape thought as powerfully as logic. Cinematic sequences depict faces illuminated by soft light, hearts racing in moments of discovery, and eyes widening in wonder. Emotion is the lens that gives meaning to information, the narration explains. It prioritizes, it colors, it guides. Without it, intelligence would be blind, deaf, and mute. This section builds a bridge between cognition and consciousness, emphasizing that true intelligence is inseparable from the emotional context in which it operates. The camera then shifts to the subtleties of unconscious perception. Micro-expressions, intuition, and instinct operate beneath conscious thought, guiding decisions and shaping awareness. Visual metaphors animate neural pathways lighting up unpredictably, suggesting a mind constantly processing, adapting, and recalibrating. The narration reflects, we are never fully aware of the processes that guide us. Our intelligence extends far beyond the reaches of conscious attention, operating in patterns we can sense but rarely see. The pacing alternates between rapid neural flashes and slower, contemplative sequences, creating a sense of discovery and mystery. Contrast framing enters as the section examines illusions and cognitive biases. Visual sequences show optical illusions, misleading shadows, and ambiguous shapes, juxtaposed with humans reacting confidently to false perceptions. The mind is brilliant yet fallible, the narrator warns. Perception can deceive, yet it also constructs reality. Intelligence thrives in the tension between clarity and confusion, certainty and doubt. The cinematic tension deepens, keeping the audience engaged and emotionally invested while highlighting the fragile, adaptive nature of cognition. The narrative broadens to include comparative perception. Animals sense ultraviolet light, echolocate or navigate magnetic fields, perceptions humans cannot directly access. Visuals overlay human vision with thermal imaging, sonar waves, and infrared, illustrating that intelligence manifests differently across species. The narrator muses, intelligence is shaped by the way one perceives the world. Reality is not universal. It is a prism refracted by the mind that perceives it. The audience is prompted to question the limits of human cognition and to appreciate intelligence as a diverse, adaptive phenomenon. Finally, the section concludes with a poetic reflection that bridges perception, consciousness, and intelligence itself. The camera pulls back from individual neurons to expansive vistas, forests, oceans, mountains, overlaid with faint glowing neural networks linking mind and environment. The narration whispers, "To perceive is to participate. To interpret is to create." Intelligence is the dialogue between the world and the mind, a constantly evolving interplay that reveals the universe not as it is, but as we understand it. The music swells, visuals linger on interconnected patterns of light, and the audience is left suspended in awe at the delicate, powerful architecture of perception that shapes thought, awareness, and intelligence. Memory is the silent architect of intelligence, building bridges between past and present, shaping the landscapes of thought with invisible hands. The camera glides through neural networks, synapses firing in cascades of light, encoding experiences with astonishing precision. The narration begins with reverence. Memory is not a record. It is a living, breathing framework that allows intelligence to grow, to anticipate, to imagine. Cinematic visuals of a child recalling a cherished moment, neurons lighting up in abstract patterns, and time-lapse sequences of aging landscapes create a visceral sense of how memory underpins cognition and understanding. The section explores the mechanics of memory, showing how sensory input is transformed into lasting impressions. Sounds, sights, and emotions are woven together into patterns that the brain can retrieve and reinterpret. Visual metaphors depict memory as threads of light connecting distant points across the cortex, forming constellations of thought. Intelligence relies on memory, the narrator continues, not merely to know what was but to navigate what might be. Without it, learning is impossible, prediction meaningless, creativity stifled. The pacing alternates between slow, intimate scenes of recollection and rapid visualizations of neural activity, immersing the audience in the intricate interplay of thought and remembrance. The narrative then delves into the emotional dimension of memory. Experiences are never neutral. They are filtered through feelings that prioritize, amplify, and distort what is retained. Cinematic sequences show laughter, grief, awe, and fear, each shaping the pathways of memory in subtle yet profound ways. The narrator reflects, emotion is the ink that writes our memories. It colors intelligence with the richness of lived experience, giving depth to thought and meaning to knowledge. The audience is drawn into the human dimension, understanding that memory is as much about feeling as it is about facts. Next, the section examines memory as a tool for foresight. The brain simulates scenarios by recombining fragments of past experience, enabling prediction, planning, and innovation. Visuals depict neurons firing in intricate patterns while overlapping sequences show humans and animals anticipating outcomes. A bird adjusting its flight midair, a chess player visualizing moves, a scientist modeling future scenarios. Memory allows intelligence to reach beyond the present, the narrator explains. It is the compass by which thought navigates the unknown, the scaffold on which imagination is built. The cinematic pacing conveys both urgency and contemplation, reinforcing the vital role of memory in the architecture of intelligence. The narrative contrasts human memory with machine storage. Computers can recall data perfectly, but they lack context, emotion, and interpretation. Scenes juxtapose a digital archive with a human remembering a childhood home, emphasizing that memory is more than information. It is a dynamic, reconstructive process. True intelligence, the narrator muses, is not in mere retrieval, but in the capacity to interpret, to connect, to learn from what has been and apply it to what could be. This contrast heightens the emotional engagement, evoking awe at human cognition while hinting at the challenges of replicating it artificially. The section broadens to collective and cultural memory. Traditions, languages, and knowledge passed across generations serve as external repositories of intelligence. Cinematic sequences show libraries, digital archives, and oral storytelling, illustrating how memory scales from individual to societal levels. Memory is not only personal, the narrator observes. It is communal, shaping civilizations, preserving wisdom, and guiding evolution itself. The visuals create a sense of continuity and connection, linking the ephemeral nature of individual thought with the enduring legacy of shared knowledge. Finally, the section concludes with a reflective and poetic note. The camera moves from microscopic synapses to sweeping vistas of human achievement, architecture, art, and exploration, all built upon the foundation of memory. The narration whispers, "Memory is the thread that binds the past to the present, the seed from which intelligence grows, and the light that illuminates the path ahead." To understand memory is to understand the heart of thought itself. The music swells, visuals linger on interconnected neural and societal patterns, leaving the audience suspended in awe at the profound role memory plays in shaping intelligence, consciousness, and the unfolding of possibility. Imagination is the spark that transforms experience into possibility, turning memory and perception into worlds yet unseen. The camera sweeps across vast landscapes of thought, a child sketching fantastical creatures, an artist painting galaxies on canvas, and engineers modeling structures that defy conventional logic. The narration begins with a tone of wonder and quiet urgency. Imagination is intelligence in motion. It allows us to see beyond what is, to envision what could be, and to shape reality through thought alone. The visuals are cinematic, blending tangible creativity with abstract representations of neural networks firing, illustrating how imagination is both a mental construct and a biological phenomenon. The sequence explores the mechanisms of creativity. Neurons connect in unpredictable pathways, forming new associations, recombining old patterns, and generating ideas that have never existed. Close-ups of synaptic sparks are interwoven with time-lapse sequences of ink flowing into water, clouds forming surreal shapes, and dancers improvising movements, visually representing the alchemy of imagination. Imagination, the narrator continues, is the playground of intelligence, where rules are bent, boundaries tested, and possibilities multiplied. The pacing oscillates between moments of quiet reflection and bursts of dynamic energy, mirroring the ebb and flow of creative thought. The narrative then examines the evolutionary role of imagination. Early humans imagined tools, strategies, and stories before bringing them into reality. Cinematic sequences depict prehistoric humans observing nature, crafting simple weapons, and envisioning shelters, juxtaposed with modern engineers, architects, and scientists designing solutions to complex problems. Intelligence thrives not just in reacting to the world, but in anticipating it, in envisioning outcomes before they occur, the narration emphasizes. This contrast frames imagination as a bridge between survival, innovation, and the expansion of human capability. Next, the section delves into the emotional power of imagination. Emotions fuel creativity, shaping ideas, inspiring innovation, and guiding moral reasoning. Visuals capture actors lost in performance, children absorbed in storytelling, and scientists celebrating breakthroughs, linking effective experience with cognitive generation. The narration reflects, imagination without emotion is hollow. It is the marriage of thought and feeling that gives vision its power, turning abstract patterns into meaningful insights. Cinematic framing alternates between intimate human experiences and expansive, almost cosmic visualizations of thought, underscoring the universality and depth of imaginative intelligence. The section contrasts human imagination with artificial creativity. Machines can generate art, simulate scenarios, and combine information in novel ways, yet the section emphasizes the subtle distinction. Humans imbue creation with intent, context, and subjective meaning. Visuals depict AI-generated images morphing alongside human paintings, highlighting both capability and limitation. The narrator muses, machines may imitate, but imagination is the conscious leap into the unknown, the dance between what is known and what is possible, guided by desire, curiosity, and consciousness itself. The cinematic tension between synthetic and organic creation deepens audience engagement while exploring the mystery of human intelligence. The narrative expands to collective imagination. Societies imagine futures, construct myths, and build visions that shape cultures, technology, and values. Cinematic sequences show architectural marvels, urban planning, global collaborations, and space exploration, each a testament to the shared power of imagination. Imagination scales, the narrator explains. It moves from neuron to mind, mind to society, society to civilization, shaping the trajectory of intelligence across time and space. The visuals convey scope and grandeur, evoking awe and reinforcing the theme of imagination as both personal and universal. Finally, the section concludes with a reflective and poetic crescendo. The camera moves from individual neural sparks to galaxies of stars, connecting the mind's creativity to the patterns of the cosmos. The narration whispers, "Imagination is the missing blueprint, the force that transforms perception, memory, and emotion into understanding and creation. It is the light that illuminates possibility, the engine of intelligence, and the bridge between the known and the infinite." Music swells, visuals linger on patterns of thought, nature, and cosmic structure, leaving the audience suspended in awe, inspired by the boundless potential of the human mind and the profound role imagination plays in shaping intelligence. Curiosity is the engine that drives intelligence forward, a restless force that pushes the mind beyond comfort and certainty into the unknown. The camera follows explorers navigating dense jungles, scientists peering through microscopes, and children reaching for objects just beyond their grasp. The narration begins with a tone of wonder and urgency. Curiosity is more than desire, it is the spark that ignites learning, discovery, and innovation. It is intelligence in pursuit of itself, asking not just what or how, but why. The cinematic visuals intertwine human endeavor with the natural world, emphasizing the universality of inquiry across species and contexts. The section explores curiosity as both an instinct and a cultivated skill. Animals investigate new environments, test boundaries, and experiment with problem-solving, revealing that the drive to know is not uniquely human. Time-lapse sequences show crows manipulating objects, dolphins exploring underwater caves, and octopuses interacting with tools, highlighting the instinctual roots of exploration. Curiosity, the narrator continues, is the force that transforms passive observation into active understanding, turning uncertainty into insight. The pacing alternates between quiet, contemplative observation and dynamic sequences of movement and discovery, reflecting the restless energy of inquisitive minds. The narrative then examines the neurological and cognitive underpinnings of curiosity. Dopamine pathways light up in response to new information, neural networks expand as connections form, and attention sharpens in the presence of challenge. Visual metaphors depict sparks traveling along illuminated pathways, branching and recombining, mirroring both neural activity and the branching paths of inquiry. The narration explains, curiosity is encoded in the brain as a reward system, yet its effects ripple far beyond. It fuels learning, adaptation, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. The cinematic presentation conveys both scientific precision and emotional resonance, allowing the audience to feel curiosity as a lived experience. Next, the section emphasizes the emotional dimension of curiosity. Wonder, surprise, and even fear drive exploration, shaping both motivation and perception. Visual sequences show a child cautiously approaching a small animal, a scientist marveling at a discovery under the microscope, and astronauts peering at distant planets, illustrating the intertwined nature of emotion and inquiry. The narrator muses, curiosity is not purely rational. It is the marriage of desire and intellect, of fascination and courage, that compels us to step into the unknown. The cinematic pacing alternates between slow, intimate observation and sweeping vistas, creating tension and release that mirrors the experience of discovery. The narrative then contrasts curiosity with complacency and routine. Inertia and assumption limit intelligence while questioning, probing, and experimentation expand it. Visuals depict contrasting scenes, stagnant office routines versus explorers navigating uncharted terrain, students passively receiving information versus actively conducting experiments. Without curiosity, the narrator reflects, intelligence stagnates. With it, every question becomes a doorway, every challenge a stepping stone, every unknown a horizon to explore. This contrast reinforces the stakes of intellectual engagement and the transformative power of curiosity. The section also explores collective curiosity and its role in cultural and technological evolution. Societies advance when curiosity is nurtured, when questions are shared, debated, and pursued collaboratively. Cinematic sequences show research labs, collaborative workshops, and communities experimenting with sustainable technologies, highlighting that curiosity scales from individual to collective intelligence. Curiosity is contagious, the narrator observes. It spreads through minds, cultures, and generations, shaping the trajectory of knowledge and civilization itself. The visuals emphasize both intimacy and scope, inspiring awe at human potential. Finally, the section concludes with a reflective and poetic crescendo. The camera pans from a child gazing at the stars to sweeping cosmic vistas, connecting the impulse to inquire with the vast mysteries of existence. The narration whispers, "Curiosity is the heartbeat of intelligence, the invisible force that propels thought beyond the known, illuminating the hidden blueprint of understanding. To cultivate it is to join the endless quest that life itself has been undertaking since time began." The music swells, visuals linger on interwoven patterns of nature, mind and cosmos, leaving the audience suspended in wonder, inspired by the boundless power of curiosity as a driving force of intelligence. Adaptation is the silent rhythm that underlies all forms of intelligence, a force that allows life, thought and civilization to bend, evolve, and survive in the face of constant change. The camera opens on a fragile desert plant twisting towards scarce sunlight, a chameleon shifting colors against the backdrop of shifting leaves, and a river carving new pathways through a once stagnant valley. The narration begins with awe and contemplation. To adapt is to engage with the world, to respond not only to the known, but to the unexpected. Intelligence is measured not in what endures but in what evolves. Cinematic visuals intertwine biological, environmental and human examples, establishing adaptation as both universal and intimate, a thread linking mind, body, and ecosystem. The section explores adaptation at the biological level. Time-lapse sequences reveal bacteria developing resistance to antibiotics, forests rebounding after wildfire, and birds altering migratory patterns in response to climate shifts. The narration emphasizes, nature's intelligence is written in survival, in flexibility, in the invisible calculations that life makes to persist and thrive. Close-ups of cellular activity, DNA replication and protein folding illustrate the microscopic machinery behind evolutionary ingenuity, creating a sense of both wonder and scientific precision. The pacing alternates between expansive environmental vistas and detailed biological sequences, mirroring the scale at which adaptation operates. Next, the narrative turns to human adaptation. Societies respond to challenges, natural disasters, technological upheaval, and social transformation, demonstrating the collective intelligence of civilizations. Cinematic sequences show communities rebuilding after storms, engineers innovating in real time, and individuals learning new skills to navigate shifting realities. The narrator reflects, human intelligence is inseparable from adaptation. To imagine, to learn, to pivot in the face of uncertainty is to participate in the grand continuum of life's problem-solving. Visuals emphasize contrast, the fragility of a single human against the resilience of communities, reinforcing the tension between vulnerability and ingenuity. The section delves into cognitive adaptation, showing how the brain reorganizes itself through experience. Neuroplasticity is illustrated with glowing synaptic connections reshaping dynamically as individuals learn, recover from trauma, or develop new skills. Our minds are living instruments, the narrator explains, capable of rewiring, recalibrating, and evolving in response to every challenge. Intelligence is measured by flexibility as much as by knowledge. Cinematic visuals pair these abstract processes with tangible examples, a musician mastering a new instrument, a scientist devising novel solutions, a child navigating a complex maze, emphasizing that adaptation manifests both subtly and dramatically in thought and behavior. Contrast framing enters as the narrative explores failures of adaptation. Extinction, missed opportunities, and societal collapse serve as stark reminders of intelligence's limits. Visual sequences show vanishing species, abandoned settlements, and crumbling infrastructure, evoking both tension and reflection. The narrator muses, adaptation is not guaranteed. Intelligence is powerful, yet it is not invincible. The stakes are survival, understanding, and the ongoing dialogue with a world in flux. This framing creates emotional engagement, highlighting both the awe-inspiring and perilous dimensions of adaptive intelligence. The section then examines technological adaptation and its accelerating role in human evolution. AI systems, algorithms, and machine learning demonstrate synthetic intelligence that adapts rapidly, processing vast data streams and responding to changing conditions. Cinematic sequences juxtapose these systems with natural and human examples, an AI predicting climate patterns, autonomous vehicles adjusting to real-time traffic, robots navigating uneven terrain, illustrating that adaptation is not only a biological or human phenomenon but a universal principle of intelligence. The narrator reflects, adaptation is intelligence in motion, whether encoded in DNA or in algorithms, whether unfolding over millennia or in milliseconds. Finally, the section concludes with a poetic and contemplative crescendo. The camera sweeps from microscopic cells adapting in a petri dish to ecosystems rebalancing after catastrophe, and finally to human civilizations innovating amidst uncertainty, all set against the cosmic backdrop of shifting stars and galaxies. The narration whispers, "Adaptation is the heartbeat of intelligence, the invisible thread linking survival, creativity, and foresight." To witness it is to see intelligence not as static knowledge, but as living, evolving engagement with the world. In every challenge lies opportunity, in every change a blueprint waiting to be understood. The music swells, visuals linger on interwoven patterns of life, mind and cosmos, leaving the audience suspended in awe at the resilience, creativity and eternal flow of adaptive intelligence. Choice and decision are the crucibles in which intelligence proves its mettle, the pivotal moments when observation, memory, imagination and foresight converge to produce action. The camera opens on a solitary figure standing at a crossroads at dawn, the golden light stretching long shadows over the ground, symbolizing the weight and consequence of every decision. The narration begins with measured intensity. Every choice, no matter how small, is the expression of intelligence. To decide is to navigate uncertainty, to weigh possibility against risk, to act in the light of knowledge, instinct, and imagination alike. Cinematic visuals seamlessly transition between human choices, animal behavior, and artificial intelligence making complex calculations, establishing decision-making as a universal hallmark of adaptive intelligence across scales and contexts. The section delves into the cognitive mechanics of decision-making. Neural circuits fire in intricate patterns, evaluating sensory input, past experiences, predictive modeling, and emotional cues. Time-lapse sequences illustrate these processes. A chess player calculating dozens of moves ahead, a bird hesitating before flight, a surgeon weighing critical options in the operating room, and an AI algorithm analyzing massive datasets for optimal outcomes. Decisions are never made in isolation, the narrator emphasizes. They are the culmination of knowledge, intuition, and subtle emotional guidance, constantly balancing risk, reward, and uncertainty. The pacing alternates between slow, contemplative reflection and rapid, tension-filled sequences, echoing the emotional and cognitive stakes inherent in choice. Next, the narrative examines the emotional dimension of decision-making. Fear, hope, curiosity, and desire exert powerful influence over how intelligence evaluates options and acts. Visuals capture hesitation, exhilaration, and doubt. A child choosing between paths in a forest, a scientist trembling at a critical discovery, a pilot navigating stormy skies. Emotion is the compass of choice, the narrator reflects. It signals danger, highlights opportunity, and colors every calculation with urgency and meaning. Intelligence is not blind logic, it is insight guided by feeling. Cinematic framing emphasizes tension, drawing the audience into a visceral understanding of how emotion shapes every act of decision-making. The section expands to explore decision-making under uncertainty. Life rarely presents perfect information, and intelligence thrives in navigating ambiguity. Visual sequences depict explorers improvising solutions to unexpected obstacles, emergency responders making split-second judgments, and AI systems predicting outcomes with incomplete data. To decide is to confront the unknown, the narrator explains. It is to act without certainty, to trust in inference, intuition, and imagination. Intelligence is revealed in the courage to choose when outcomes remain unseen. The cinematic pacing mirrors this tension, shifting between suspenseful sequences of action and quiet moments of reflection, immersing the audience in the high stakes of intelligent choice. Contrast framing deepens the narrative by examining both successes and failures. Some choices lead to breakthroughs, survival, and progress, while others result in loss, regret, or stagnation. Visual sequences juxtapose triumphant explorers discovering new lands with abandoned expeditions, successful scientific breakthroughs with failed experiments, and precise AI predictions with human error. The narrator muses, intelligence is measured not only in success but in the courage to engage uncertainty, to experiment, to learn from missteps. Every decision leaves a trace, a pattern guiding future choices and shaping the ongoing blueprint of understanding. This contrast heightens emotional engagement, emphasizing the tension and responsibility inherent in decision-making. The narrative then examines collective decision-making, showing how intelligence manifests across communities, organizations, and civilizations. Cinematic sequences depict councils debating policy, research teams collaborating on global challenges, and cities responding to crises, illustrating that decision-making is both an individual and distributed phenomenon. Intelligence scales, the narrator observes. It emerges in the minds of individuals and in the networks that bind societies. Each choice is a thread in the tapestry of collective understanding, a pattern influencing the trajectory of culture, knowledge, and civilization. The visuals convey intimacy and scope, inspiring awe at the reach and impact of intelligent action. Next, the section explores the long-term consequences of decisions. Choices reverberate across time, shaping futures for individuals, societies, and even ecosystems. Visual sequences show deforestation and reforestation, urban planning and societal reform, technological innovation, and its environmental repercussions. Every decision writes a chapter in the story of intelligence, the narrator reflects. Some outcomes are immediate, others unfold over decades, centuries, or millennia. To choose is to participate in the unfolding of reality, to leave a mark on the tapestry of existence. Cinematic pacing alternates between immediate action and slow, reflective montages, highlighting both urgency and foresight in decision-making. The section also considers ethical and moral dimensions of choice. Decisions carry weight not only for survival or success but for values, justice, and collective welfare. Visuals depict leaders confronting moral dilemmas, communities negotiating conflict, and scientists debating the implications of technology. Intelligence is not just calculation, it is discernment, the narrator explains. True decision-making considers impact, consequence, and the balance between self-interest and the greater good. Contrast framing illustrates the tension between short-term expediency and long-term wisdom, engaging the audience in the profound responsibility inherent in every act of choice. Finally, the narrative crescendos by linking decision-making to universal patterns of intelligence. The camera pulls back from human and animal decisions to planetary systems, ecosystems, and cosmic evolution, showing that choice, adaptation, and consequence are fundamental principles at all scales. The narration concludes poetically, "To decide is to participate in the unfolding of existence. It is to transform observation into action, knowledge into consequence, and potential into reality." Intelligence is revealed in every choice, leaving a trace of pattern, a blueprint of insight, and a bridge between the known and the unknown. In every act of decision, we glimpse the invisible architecture of intelligence that shapes life, mind, and cosmos alike. Music swells, visuals linger on interwoven patterns of motion, light, and consequence, leaving the audience suspended in awe at the universality, power, and subtlety of decision as a defining expression of intelligence. Creativity is the apex of intelligence in motion, the force that transforms observation, knowledge, memory, and imagination into something entirely new, something that did not exist before the mind touched it. The camera opens on a blank canvas, the quiet scratch of pencil on paper echoing in a dimly lit studio, then sweeps across bustling workshops, laboratories, and stages where invention and artistry unfold simultaneously. The narration begins with reverent intensity. Creativity is the spark that transforms thought into reality, that bridges perception and possibility. It is intelligence made tangible, a force that shapes worlds both seen and unseen, a force that allows the mind to leave its imprint upon existence. Cinematic visuals weave human, animal, and artificial examples together, emphasizing that creativity is not limited to art or science, but is a universal expression of adaptive intelligence, appearing wherever life confronts challenge and opportunity. The section dives deeply into the neurological basis of creativity. Complex networks of neurons fire in seemingly unpredictable patterns, linking distant ideas and experiences to produce insight. Visual metaphors illuminate these processes as sparks traveling across interconnected nodes, like constellations forming luminous webs in the mind. Time-lapse sequences illustrate ideas taking shape in the real world, a sculptor molding clay, a composer arranging notes into a symphony, an engineer sketching the blueprint of a novel machine. Creativity, the narrator explains, is the marriage of structure and spontaneity, of memory and imagination. It is intelligence navigating the unknown, forging connections where none seemed possible, turning chaos into clarity and uncertainty into invention. The pacing alternates between contemplative close-ups of neural activity and dynamic sequences of creative acts, mirroring the rhythm of innovation itself. Next, the narrative examines the emotional dimension of creativity, emphasizing that emotion and intelligence are inseparable in the creative act. Passion, curiosity, frustration, and joy drive the mind to explore beyond known boundaries. Visual sequences capture a scientist standing in awe at an unexpected result, a dancer improvising movements with abandon, a child lost in imaginative play. Intelligence alone is inert, the narrator reflects. It is emotion that fuels its expression, giving urgency, depth, and direction to the act of creation. Creativity is the dialogue between thought and feeling, a synthesis that allows the mind to reach beyond itself. Cinematic framing emphasizes intimacy, drawing the audience into a visceral understanding of the interplay between cognition and effect, showing that creativity is as much felt as it is reasoned. The section then explores creativity as an adaptive problem-solving mechanism. Human and animal examples demonstrate innovation as a response to challenge, illustrating that creativity is a practical expression of intelligence. Visuals show crows bending wires to retrieve food, engineers prototyping sustainable energy systems, and AI algorithms discovering unexpected solutions to complex problems. The narrator observes, creativity is intelligence at the frontier, where known rules are stretched, constraints are navigated, and new possibilities are revealed. Every problem is a doorway, every obstacle an invitation to invent. Cinematic tension heightens, alternating between sequences of failure, improvisation, and eventual breakthroughs, creating both suspense and awe. Contrast framing is introduced as the narrative examines failures and successes. Some creative efforts falter, some flourish, and each contributes to the ongoing evolution of intelligence. Visual sequences juxtapose abandoned inventions with celebrated masterpieces, discarded sketches with architectural marvels, failed experiments with scientific breakthroughs. The narrator muses, creativity is resilient. It thrives on iteration, risk, and persistence. Every attempt, whether triumphant or flawed, leaves a trace, a blueprint for future insight. Intelligence grows not in perfection but in the courage to try, to fail, and to try again. This duality enhances emotional engagement, highlighting both the struggle and the transcendence inherent in creative processes. The narrative expands to collective creativity, showing how collaboration amplifies the power of individual insight. Teams of scientists, artists, engineers, and innovators exchange ideas, iterate, and co-create, producing works that surpass the sum of their parts. Cinematic sequences depict orchestras improvising together, global research collaborations, and workshops where engineers prototype solutions in real time. Creativity scales, the narrator explains. It moves from neuron to mind, mind to community, community to civilization, shaping culture, knowledge, and innovation across generations. The evolution of intelligence is a collective endeavor, amplified by shared imagination and collaboration. Visuals alternate between intimate human interactions and sweeping shots of human achievement, emphasizing both connection and scope. The section also explores the temporal dimension of creativity. Ideas emerge, gestate, and evolve over time, often unexpectedly or through iterative refinement. Visual sequences show a painter layering brushstrokes over months, scientists testing hypotheses across years, and composers revising symphonies over decades. Creativity is patient, the narrator observes. It requires reflection, persistence, and the willingness to revisit, reinterpret, and reimagine. Intelligence is revealed not only in sudden flashes of inspiration but in the steady, persistent shaping of thought over time. Cinematic pacing mirrors this, alternating moments of quiet contemplation with bursts of inventive energy, immersing the audience in the rhythm of the creative process. Finally, the narrative ties creativity to the cosmic and universal scales of intelligence. The camera pulls back from human innovation to ecosystems adapting to challenges, from planets forming in distant star systems to galaxies evolving over eons, illustrating that creativity is a fundamental principle of life and intelligence itself. The narrator concludes poetically, creativity is intelligence realized. It is the force that transforms perception, memory, and imagination into new forms, new ideas, and new worlds. It is the visible expression of the hidden blueprint of intelligence, a bridge between thought and reality, a testament to the endless capacity of mind to shape, adapt, and illuminate. In every invention, in every work of art, in every bold leap of imagination, we glimpse the universal impulse to create, to connect, and to transform. The music swells, visuals linger on interwoven patterns of neurons, ecosystems, and cosmic structures, leaving the audience suspended in awe, inspired by the boundless, universal power of creative intelligence. Intelligence, in its fullest expression, is the convergence of all forces explored, perception, memory, imagination, curiosity, adaptation, decision, and creativity, woven together into a dynamic, evolving system capable of understanding, shaping, and transforming reality. The camera opens on a vast, interconnected web of neurons firing in harmony, then expands to show human cities pulsing with activity, forests thriving and adapting, and planets moving in their cosmic orbits. The narration begins with a tone of awe and reflection. Intelligence is not a singular trait nor a fixed endpoint. It is the living tapestry of observation, learning, foresight, and innovation, unfolding across scales, species, and time. Cinematic visuals link microscopic neural activity with sweeping natural landscapes and human civilization, establishing intelligence as a universal principle manifested in countless forms. The section begins by examining the architecture of integrated intelligence. Individual cognitive functions, perception, memory, emotion, and imagination, interact as a complex system, creating emergent properties that exceed the sum of their parts. Visuals show neurons forming intricate networks, data streams interweaving in digital simulations, and collaborative human teams generating novel solutions. True intelligence, the narrator explains, is more than isolated ability. It emerges when systems connect, when information is interpreted, applied, and transformed into understanding. It is dynamic, recursive, and adaptive. Cinematic pacing alternates between intimate close-ups of thought processes and expansive sequences of systemic interaction, illustrating the multi-layered nature of intelligence. The narrative then explores intelligence as a force of adaptation and survival. Biological, cognitive, and societal systems all leverage information to respond to challenges, anticipate threats, and exploit opportunities. Visual sequences depict species evolving in response to environmental pressures, engineers redesigning technology to solve crises, and cities adapting to climate shifts. Intelligence is the capacity to learn from the past, navigate the present, and anticipate the future, the narrator emphasizes. It is the bridge between knowledge and action, insight and application. The visuals and narration combine urgency, wonder, and clarity, engaging the audience both emotionally and intellectually. Next, the section examines intelligence as a creative engine. Ideas, solutions, and innovations are generated through the recombination of knowledge, memory, and imagination. Visuals depict artists, inventors, and scientists bringing new forms, technologies, and concepts into existence, alongside nature's own inventive processes, beavers constructing dams, birds crafting tools, and ecosystems finding equilibrium. Creativity is intelligence in motion, the narrator muses. It is the force that transforms potential into reality, that reshapes the world and propels evolution. Every act of creation is a dialogue between mind and environment, between possibility and consequence. Cinematic framing alternates between intimate moments of insight and grand sequences of invention, reinforcing both scale and significance. The section then delves into intelligence as a problem-solving and decision-making mechanism. Humans, animals, and artificial systems all confront uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk, employing foresight, analysis, and judgment to navigate complexity. Visuals show emergency responders improvising in crises, scientists modeling unknown phenomena, and AI systems calculating outcomes in real time. The narrator reflects. Intelligence manifests in choice, in the ability to navigate uncertainty with reason, intuition, and courage. Every decision is both a test and an expression of understanding, a reflection of pattern recognition, learning, and foresight. Cinematic pacing mirrors tension and resolution, keeping viewers immersed in the stakes of intelligent action. Contrast framing highlights the fragility and resilience of intelligence. Failures, errors, and miscalculations occur alongside breakthroughs, adaptations, and innovations. Visual sequences juxtapose ecological collapse with regeneration, failed experiments with scientific triumphs, and societal stagnation with periods of transformative progress. Intelligence is not infallible, the narrator observes. Its power lies in persistence, in the capacity to learn, adapt, and innovate despite uncertainty and error. Every failure contains the blueprint for future understanding, every mistake a lesson encoded into the architecture of cognition. This duality heightens engagement, emphasizing both awe and humility. The narrative expands to collective and networked intelligence. Knowledge, creativity, and problem-solving are amplified when minds connect, when societies, networks, and civilizations collaborate and iterate. Visual sequences show global research collaborations, digital information flows, scientific conferences, and cultural innovations, illustrating intelligence as a distributed phenomenon. The narrator emphasizes, intelligence is amplified through connection. It is shared, cumulative, and emergent. When minds converge, they generate solutions, insights, and understanding far beyond what any individual could achieve alone. Civilization itself is a manifestation of collective intelligence. The visuals oscillate between intimate human interactions and sweeping global perspectives, reinforcing the scale and universality of intelligent systems. Next, the section considers intelligence as a force shaping the future. Emerging technologies, exploration, and scientific understanding expand the horizon of what is possible. Cinematic sequences depict space exploration, AI-driven discovery, sustainable innovation, and human ingenuity confronting global challenges. Intelligence is not static, it is generative, the narrator explains. It projects potential into reality, imagines new worlds, and transforms both mind and environment. Every act of insight is a step into the unknown, a bridge between today and what might be. The cinematic pacing alternates between quiet reflection and dynamic, awe-inspiring sequences, heightening the sense of possibility and wonder. Finally, the section culminates in a reflective, poetic crescendo linking intelligence to the cosmos itself. The camera pulls back from neurons to human activity, from cities to ecosystems, and ultimately to planets, galaxies, and the spiraling universe. The narration concludes, intelligence is the living blueprint of adaptation, creativity, and foresight. It is the force that observes, learns, imagines, decides, and transforms. It flows from the smallest neuron to the largest civilization, from the mind of a child to the spiraling galaxies overhead. It is the bridge between the known and the unknown, the visible and the invisible, the possible and the real. In intelligence, we witness the ongoing dialogue of life and consciousness with the universe itself. Music swells as visuals linger on interwoven patterns of thought, life, and cosmos, leaving the audience suspended in awe, inspired by the depth, beauty, and universality of intelligence.